Hey tea heads, this is Don from Mayleaf. In this video, it's the Battle of the Provinces as we do a head-to-head between the Silver Needle from Yunnan and the Silver Needle from Fujian. We're going to be doing a comparative tasting to see if we can work out the differences and whether or not this Fujian Silver Needle is worth the premium price tag. If at any point in time you enjoy this video, then make sure you hit it with a like, and if you're not following us on all of our socials, then go click those buttons. For those of you who don't know, Silver Needle is any white tea which is made only with the buds of the tea plant. It is the most ubiquitous white tea out there. Every self-respecting tea seller sells it. But as always in the world of tea, there is a chasm of difference between the low-grade commodity stuff and the top shelf material. I have done a video already talking about some tips and tricks in how you can visually identify high-quality Silver Needle. A lot of those rules apply. However, we're going to now dive into the differences that province makes in the tea. Silver Needle is not protected by origin. It's not like Longjing, which has to grow in Zhejiang province. Silver Needle can be produced anywhere as long as it is a white tea made only with the buds of the tea plant, and therefore it is being produced all over China and in other countries in the world. However, Fujian, and specifically Fuding in Fujian, is renowned and revered as producing the highest quality white tea. A lot of that is due to the history of white tea being invented in that part of China. But for the past couple of years, we have been sourcing our Mayleaf Silver Needle from other provinces in China. And I have been receiving a few comments saying, why are you not sourcing Fujian, specifically Fuding Silver Needle? Isn't that meant to be the best? Right, whenever an area is renowned and revered as producing the best of any one tea, a couple of things happen. The first is obviously that the price goes up. Demand for that area increases and increases, and therefore the price can go up. And so therefore you're paying an artificial inflation due to the name tag of the location and area. The other thing that happens is as demand increases in an area, there's more kind of motivation for producing more and more tea in that area, and therefore you can get a lot more lower quality commodity tea being produced in these highly revered areas simply because they're trying to max out the yield of an area. Now, of course, there are some incredible Silver Needles and white teas being produced in Fuding and Fujian. I am not saying anything to the contrary. However, I have felt for the past couple of years that your price to quality point is much better in other provinces. However, as always, every year we taste from all the provinces, and this year I found a Fuding Silver Needle that I really fell in love with, and I had to get a small amount in. And so what we're going to do today is we're going to be tasting our Silver Needle, which comes from Yunnan this year, and we're going to be tasting it against a small batch Fuding Silver Needle to see if we can taste the differences and if the Fuding is worth the extra price tag. I will tell you right now that this Fujian Silver Needle is going to be more than double the price of the Yunnan Silver Needle. You can take a little look at the leaves. So this is the Yunnan Silver Needle, and here we have the Fujian Silver Needle. You can see quite a difference in the look of the leaves. Let's quickly scope them. Season, they're both spring pickings, both March pickings. However, this one here is 2-year aged. Just to give it a little extra body on there, this is 2016 versus 2018. Now, with Fuding Silver Needles, I always find that giving them a couple of years just increases the intensity of the taste and really brings out the flavor. The cultivar, this is a Dabai cultivar, which is the most classic cultivar for white tea. This is Dabai Hao, which is a natural variety that grows in Yunnan province. Origin, this comes from Fuding, Fujian, and this one here comes from JINGGU, very famous area in Yunnan province to produce white teas. The picking and processing, very similar. They're going to be bud picking only. There will be some differences in the way that they're withered and dried, but essentially it's buds that are dried, and the elevation, this one here being a Yunnan Silver Needle, is going to be higher elevation, about 1,600 versus 850 meters, so about half the height, yet double the price. Right, let's take a little look at these leaves. You can see here that there's a quite clear difference with the Yunnan Silver Needle. The cultivar here is much bigger, fatter buds than these here, which look a lot more delicate, a lot more wispy, and a lot more kind of fluffy. The color is different as well. This has got more of that beige antique silver look to it, whereas this has silver and greens, more like sage greens going on in the color palette of these leaves. I am excited to taste. I'm gonna boost this up to 90 degrees. That's 195 Fahrenheit. And we are going to taste the difference. As I said, I did get some comments over the years. Why are you not sourcing Fujian Silver Needle? I think that you've always got to watch out when you've got famous areas for tea that you're not getting suckered into spending more just for the origin. We're going to heat these pots up just to warm them up so we get a nice hit of aroma when we throw these dry leaves in. Might as well warm up all the teaware. Very, very excited. I did fall in love with both of these silver needles, but when I tasted that Fujian Silver Needle, I remember I thought, well, yeah, this is the year we're definitely going to have to get a Fuding in. And as I said, this is 2 years aged. Now, in my impression, I like it when Fujian Silver Needles are a little bit older. For some reason, Fujian, as we'll see, produces more fresh notes teas. And we want those grassy notes to be amplified and be complemented by the aging process. All right, Yunnan first. Let's see what we smell. A really interesting aroma, kind of peppery, savory. I'm getting a bit of hay, a bit of meadow air, but a distinct salty, kind of cured meat, cured salami smell to it, which is really, really intriguing. Very, very interesting smell. The Fujian, totally different. I'm getting more marzipans. I'm getting more nuts, a little bit, a lot more minerality coming through the nose, and a slightly fermented tang. And that's not just the fact that it's 2 years old, that's also related to the cultivar and the terroir in there. You're going to get more of a tang with the Fujian tea. Right, we're going to give these a rinse. As I said, 90-degree water here, but with white teas you can really, really experiment. It really is one of those teas that you brew to your personal preference. Some people like to brew it colder and longer, which will bring out more of the texture and keep things light. Some people like to brew very, very hot, which means you're going to get a stronger extraction, obviously, and you are going to be bringing out more of the mineral notes of the tea. Right, let's smell the wet leaves. Big, big difference. Ooh, fascinating aroma. Definitely different to your average silver needle. Again, I'm getting these wild notes coming through. Yunnan province, for those of you who don't know, is the province which produces more of those wild tribal teas, specifically pu'er tea, sheng pu'er tea, and you're picking up that terroir. It's definitely got a lot more complex wild notes coming through. What do I mean by that? I'm smelling kind of apples, but apples that have kind of fallen to the ground and are fermenting on the earth. You're getting the sweetness of some honey notes coming through. Melon comes through, but very, very, very ripe honeydew melon. Fujian, again, so different. I'm getting more floral notes here. I'm getting some fresh notes. So the fruits are more like star fruits, more fresh, juicy. This has got more of that wild forest note to it, whereas this just feels more elegant. I'm getting some green tea notes coming through, a little bit of milkiness. Again, marzipan, nuts. Very, very strong aroma. Definitely a very, very strong aroma. This one here, just totally different, more very ripe, more fresh. That would be the key difference here. All right, still 90 degrees here. Now with Silver Needle, we brew longer than your average. For Gong Fu brewing, we're going to be brewing about 45 seconds. The reason for that is that these buds are practically waterproof, so you need time for the water to penetrate those buds. I would recommend brewing with glass just so you get to see that lovely up-down bobbing that happens with those fine buds. Very, very nice. Definitely fatter and heavier buds on the Yunnan side, and definitely you can see the color of the liquor already is very different. This one a little bit more browns and grays in there. This one very, very much verdant and green. Okay, I reckon that's about 45 seconds. You can go longer, you can brew up to a minute, maybe even a minute and a half, depending. As I said, with white teas and especially Silver Needle, there's so much scope for you to play around. What are we using as our tea pet? We're using a peanut for no particular reason other than it was given to me. So the peanut, this is very weird, but it gets doused with some water, some tea. All right, so let's pour these in and then I'll show you the difference in the color. So you can see here the Yunnan Silver Needle compared to the Fujian Silver Needle, which is definitely more bright and green. This one has a little bit more brown in it. You can see the color difference here as well very clearly in the cups. All right, so let's focus on texture. Now with Silver Needle, you're looking for soft, syrupy, and thick. Extremely thick, extremely syrupy, very, very soft. That's exactly what I'm looking for with the initial mouthfeel when you drink Silver Needle. Fujian, it's very hard not to focus on taste. Just focusing on texture, I would say they are similar. Soft, syrupy, and very, very thick. All right, all important taste. Now, there is such a difference between these teas that they almost should be called different teas. You shouldn't call them both Silver Needles. This one here, I'm getting some juicy fruits. I'm getting a little bit of orange. I'm getting, surprising, this very, very clear orange note coming through. A little bit of cream coming through, a little bit like if you had those orange chewy sweets, slightly creamy sweets, those candies. So very, very ripe oranges and some other ripe fruits like I said, you know, melon, cantaloupe melon, orange melons. Very, very nice. Has that wild note to it though. Definitely this kind of wild forest note coming through. Totally different, much more on the fresh zones. You're talking about green nuts like acorns, chestnuts. We're talking flowers, much more green tea notes to them. Those kinds of milky nuts, grassy notes. The fruits are there, but they're much fresher. They're like star fruit or Asian pear. Star fruit, I think, is the closest that I can come to in describing it. There's a distinct vanilla note to it as well, just underneath. Really, really delicious, very, very interesting interplay of milky, nutty, grassy, and slightly fermented versus the Yunnan, which is much wilder tasting, much more of those foresty, but I don't mean woodsy, I mean, you know, humid and verdant forest notes compared to the Fujian, which is pretty spectacular. tea, because it has all of the notes that you're looking for in a Fujian tea. You're looking for those marzipan notes, you're looking for those vanilla notes, you're looking for those green sappy notes to the tea, it's all perfectly represented. Take a look at these wet leaves. You can see the difference in color, and I have taken it upon myself beforehand to just brew up a couple of buds beforehand so you can see the difference once they've been opened up. You can see that the Fujian Silver Needle is smaller buds compared to the Yunnan. The hairs are longer on the Fujian compared to the very short, more kind of creamy antique silver beige color of the Yunnan. You can see that it's definitely a little bit more green on the Fujian Silver Needle, but you can see, very importantly, once I've opened them up, that they have similar amounts of layers within. And it's very important, if you watched the previous video that I did about Silver Needle, that you know that you're looking for buds that have multiple layers inside, because if they don't, and they only have like a shell, it usually means that the buds were picked too late or were coming from a second flush. Right, let's brew these up again. All right. I'm not going filtered here because I like the texture that the hairs on those buds provide to the tea, so I like to kind of strip them off and drink them. Right, so second infusion. Thickness looks nice. You can see the bubbles on here persisting. Okay, so more of the cream is coming through now. I'm getting those orange notes, but I'm also getting cream, but again, it's sweet and ripe. Again, like overripe bananas. Very, very much this kind of hot environment that feels like the fruits are just maturing and ripening much faster. Definitely honey notes coming through. Very much that wild honey, wild fruits, summer forest taste. This is springtime. Oh. I'm getting some flowers. I'm getting some like blossoms, meadow flowers, orange blossoms. The creaminess is there. Different kind of creaminess. If this is overripe banana creaminess here, yeah, and oranges, that one is more like a flowery, nutty creaminess to it. It's like chestnut flowers, marzipans, those kinds of creamy notes. Texture difference, very difficult when you're doing this A/B, but you can start to kind of feel a difference. This one's evolving and changing. This one has a softer finish, I would say. It's softer and smoother, whereas this one here, it starts off the same, nice, thick, syrupy texture, but once you swallow, you get more physicality in the mouth with this one. Certainly, I feel that this one would go for longer infusions. It has that physical sensation, that drying to juicy sensation that's much more pronounced than in the Yunnan tea. I could do this all day, the A/B between the wild, the juicy, the orangey, the overripe papayas, the honeydew melons, the slightly kind of overripe banana creaminess, and then follow it with ultra springtime, ultra sappy. It really reminds me of those bud green teas like Naked Spring that have those very, very clear, sappy, spring-like qualities, but then offset with that age, with that nuttiness, with that slightly, just nutty marzipan and vanilla notes to it. Okay, let's smell the empty Gongda Bei. I'm gonna quickly pour these out, give it a little chance to evaporate some of the water, so I'm not getting a nose full of steam. light on the empty Gongda Bay. Those juicy fruits are coming through. Again, I'm getting things like honeydew melon, papaya, a little bit of forest honey, but light. Smell on the Fujian, much, much heavier, much richer. Very similar to the flavor profile. I'm getting those nuts, acorns, chestnuts. I'm getting a slight sourness coming through, a little bit of fermented fruits, star fruit, definite star fruit sourness. Okay, so which is better? Well, with the Fujian being over double the price of the Yunnan, you would expect the Fujian to be a better tea. If you forced me to pick one tea over the other and I could only pick one tea, there would be elements of the other tea that I would miss. If I picked the Fujian tea, I would miss that wild forest Yunnan taste of the Yunnan tea. And if I picked the Yunnan tea, I would miss that really rich, nutty marzipan and creamy notes of the Fujian. However, I think I would miss the Fujian more than the Yunnan, and I do think it is a higher quality tea in general. But it's like you have those kind of single malt whiskies, right? If you drink whiskey, you might have one single malt whiskey which is your ultra special small batch. You save it for special occasions when you really want to treat yourself, and then you'll have a single malt that you'll buy which is a very good quality single malt, but you can afford to drink it every day or as often as you want. And it's the same here. If you had to pick only one, or if somebody said, I'm going to give you one as a gift, I would pick the Fujian Silver Needle every time. But the two of them kind of have different purposes in your cupboard. This one you can certainly drink more often, and it is a great, very interesting Silver Needle. Certainly demonstrates what the terroir in Yunnan can produce, which is very different from that of Fujian. The soil, the history of pu'er making, the cultivar, all of those differences mean that you get a very different tasting tea. Wild and juicy, nutty, creamy and sappy. So those are the differences. The smart person would be picking up this one and potentially aging it further themselves, because this one here, probably this one as well, but this one after 2 years is doing great things. What's it going to be like after 5 years? They both are high grade silver needles. I encourage you to check them out, and you can certainly do this horizontal tasting yourself to see the difference that province makes. That's it, tea heads. If you made it to the end of this video, then make sure you hit it with a like. Follow us on all of our socials so that you don't miss out on any news and videos from Mayleaf HQ. If you're ever in London, then come visit us in Camden to say hi and taste our wares. If you have any questions, comments or video ideas, then please fire them over. Other than that, I'm Don from Mayleaf. Thank you for being a part of the revelation of true tea. Stay away from those tea bags. Keep drinking the good stuff and spread the word, because nobody deserves bad tea. Bye.